Nearly 1 year later, the 2025 trade deadline continues to haunt the Minnesota Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Twins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm CJ Baumgartner, Twins writer for Zone Coverage. And want to remind you, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The biggest stage in world soccer is here, and let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started now. On today's show, we take a preview into the Twins Rockies series and why I think the Twins offense is set for a big weekend. We also talk about the fact that Luke Keaschall is going to be getting some time in right field. We continue that discussion as well as our top story today, which is that nearly 1 year later, the 2025 trade deadline, it's still not looking too good for the Minnesota Twins. So let's break it down trade by trade. And before we start, before we get into this deep dive, I do want to say a couple things. One, I'm not going to combine war of players because there's a lot of prospects that got moved. So sometimes the easiest way is just to say, hey, this trade has produced this much war. This trade has produced that much war. All of that can be true, and maybe that's a discussion for a different day when we have more information on these players as pros or as big leaguers is the better word to say. But as of right now, we're kind of just going to have to go case by case and break it down and give it an overall vibes feel on where we're at for this. And the other thing I will say is that it's still early. And while this tenor, this discussion is not going to be great when we discuss the trade deadline, that doesn't mean that we can never change our opinion on the 2025 trade deadline either. If all of a sudden a bunch of these prospects start working out, or some of these guys kind of click on a level that maybe we haven't seen yet, or a player that the Twins traded away ends up falling off a cliff in a way that we couldn't foresee. Like, there's a lot of things that can still change. So just because we're having this discussion today doesn't mean that it's the end of the road and that we can never change any of the ways we talk about the trade deadline from here on out. All right, now that that's underway, let's take a look here at the three categories of trades that the Twins did at the 2025 trade deadline, because you got to take them apart piece by piece here. So if you look at the expiring contracts that the Twins had, I actually think overall they did pretty well trading away the expiring contracts. Guys that, we knew the Twins were going to be sellers at the 2025 deadline. We knew that they were going to try and get into they were going to try and get rid of those guys, right? So that being said, let's take a look here at the Willie Castro trade. The Twins traded Willie Castro to the Chicago Cubs for Ryan Gallagher. And Gallagher's been a nice pitcher in the Twins system. Righty, started the year in Double-A, pitched well, got moved up to Triple-A, has a 6.60 ERA in St. Paul. But again, there's still a learning curve there. I think he's on track to be a pitcher that can be in the Twins' future plans. Although, again, is he like a top-of-the-rotation guy? Probably not, but still a useful pitcher that you can get for an expiring contract. That's a good trade. Harrison Bader for Hendry Mendez. That's another good trade that the Twins got in the deal. Hendry Mendez has an 890 OPS in AAA. He started the year in Double-A, got his way worked up, and honestly could have made a case to get to the major leagues at some point this year. And that still is a possibility. He's currently on the injured list right now. So that still has been a good trade. So the Harrison Bader for Hendry Mendez, again, at least on track. Looks like you got some good value there, again, for an expiring contract. Chris Paddock and Randy Dobnak for Enrique Jimenez. Well, that was a great trade because you got rid of Chris Paddock and you got rid of a contract you wanted to dump in Randy Dobnak anyway, so that saves you a roster spot. Enrique Jimenez right now is in high A, although he does have a 953 OPS. He continues to work his way up the system. Still a little bit of ways away. It's a lottery ticket type prospect, so not going to say, total win, but certainly on track to be a not bad trade for your team. Brock Stewart for James Outman. That one was bad. Brock Stewart is back with the Dodgers, but again, Stewart was on an expiring deal, so that kind of is separate from what the Twins got out of him, or what the Dodgers got out of him, I should say, in the final months of last season, because Brock Stewart ended up getting hurt and really didn't do a ton for them. James Outman, though, it's not great for him. A 44 OPS plus, and again, OPS plus curved in the same way weighted runs created plus is, so 100 is league average, and well, James Outman over his Twins tenure, a 44 OPS plus in 86 games, not good. So I think we all agree that one was bad. Danny Colomb for Garrett Horn. Garrett Horn right now is on the IL, but is having a nice season between the A systems as a left-handed pitcher in the system. So, whatever. Again, lottery ticket. We could call that just a wash or like incomplete maybe on that one. So that's the expiring contracts. Those are all the ones that are pretty non-controversial trades for the Twins. This is where you get into a little bit more with trading Jhoan Duran. This is the peak value part of the trade deadline. The Twins could have kept Duran. He's under contract for this season and next season, but they decided to sell him while his value was at his highest, and you ended up getting Mick Abel and Eduardo Taiit. Now, both of them are top 30 prospects in your system. I like the return of Abel and Taiit, so I think when the trade happened, I like the value you got. I think that this trade has a possibility, a strong possibility of working out, but at the end of the day, Abel has pitched in just 8 games and 5 starts in Minnesota with a 5.77 ERA over 34 innings. Now, he does have a 3.98 ERA this season, but that's only through 4 games. And again, I think we all saw Mick Abel pitch and go, hey, this guy might be something. Like, I think Mick Abel is a pitcher the fan base is excited about. And if you are, let me know in the comments. If you're not, let me know in the comments. But I think Abel has been a good pitcher. I'm high on him, but he just hasn't pitched enough, and he hasn't pitched enough at a high level for you to write that down with certainty. And especially with the injury setback now, that's not been fun either. Eduardo Taiit has a 749 OPS in high A, but over his last month does have an 864 OPS. So somebody who is starting to hit a little bit better at low A. He's still very young, 19, 20 years old in high A. So he does have a path to the big leagues here. And I think Taiit and Abel together, not that one is necessarily the quote unquote headliner, but both of them are pretty nice prospects, especially relative to their positions. It's a good return that they got. But again, now that you actually have to realize the gains you have, there just hasn't been that many yet for the Jhoan Duran trade. So that, not that that's an L, but again, if you're looking at trying to get that value back, because the Twins did prioritize getting guys who were in AAA and high minors and guys who could help out immediately, you're certainly not getting a lot of immediate help from Mick Abel. And then again, I like Taiit. We'll give him time as a prospect to develop. And then this is the final category, and this is where, again, you get into the real controversial moves of the deadline. I have this one titled, You Didn't Have to Make That Trade. That's where my third category is. This one is Griffin Jax for Taj Bradley. Jax demanded a trade after the sell-off started to begin, and some of the bigger pieces were moved. Duran was traded. You traded, first of all, most of the bullpen, and then you traded Carlos Correa, and Griffin Jax, who like the week before already was kind of at odds with Rocco Baldelli in the dugout. Now, how much is that like lingering? How much was that just heat of the moment? I don't really know. But that followed by a trade demand a week later, you had no choice but to move him. But that being said, you didn't have to do the giant sell-off that led Jax to demand his exit. But that being said, if you got a player that doesn't want to be there, well then, I don't know, man. You kind of just have to find a way to get the best out of it. But you got Taj Bradley back. And I was a big proponent at the end of last season into this season of, hey, Taj Bradley for Griffin Jax is going to be a really good trade for the Twins. Like, I think they're going to get better value. And the main reason why is I thought Taj Bradley, not that he could be a staff ace, but that he could be a middle to, a 2 or 3 starter in your rotation. And if he's that and he's highly effective, well, he's better than even a good reliever, because a good starter is just more valuable than a good reliever, even an above average, like very good reliever. But now all of a sudden, Griffin Jax has been a starter for the Tampa Bay Rays. Griffin Jax has a 3.33 ERA overall in the season, and now as a starting pitcher has a 2.40 ERA over 45 innings. And again, it's not huge starts. He's going like 4 to 5 innings a start at best, but they're stretching him out to get to that point. And there always has been that conversation with Griffin Jax. His stuff was so nasty and he threw so hard that you could probably convert him back to being a starter. The Twins never did. Tampa Bay wanted to. And now you've seen that so far. So if Griffin Jax is going to be at the same level of starter as Taj Bradley, well, then it's just a wash at best. Because Bradley, and to be fair, since coming off of the IL last month, is slowly starting to get healthier, but still has had some struggles. But the Twins do need more production. And you see that up and downness from Bradley that kind of made the Rays go, we're willing to punt on this guy because we like his highs, but his lows are stuff we have to deal with. And that hasn't been ideal for the Twins. So all of a sudden, the Griffin Jax trade, one of the big wins of that deadline for you, all of a sudden is now shifted to at best a neutral, and at worst you lost it because now Jax is a really good starter for Tampa Bay. Carlos Correa for, I don't know, who cares, dude? Matt Mikulski, like, no offense to Mr. Mikulski, but it was just a pure salary dump. Now, Correa got hurt again, so it's not like the Twins really lost out on this deal, but it's just they got rid of his contract. Maybe they'll spend it. They just pocket the money, deflates the fan base. Like, it's that trade in terms of value on the field, really, it doesn't matter because Correa didn't really do much for Houston and wasn't really doing much now. That being said, the Twins could turn around their shortstop fortunes if Kaelen Culpepper comes up and does things, but it's not like the Twins have necessarily gotten a ton of production out of shortstop, and Correa at least gave you a solid floor for production at shortstop. So to not have him has been frustrating, but he's been hurt. So that one's a wash. That one, it's just more, that one was a vibes killer more than it was an on-field killer as well. Louie Varland for Kendry, Rojas, and Allen Roden. And this is the trade that the Twins fan base will never forget out of all of the deals. But that being said, I am willing to give this deal more time. I do like Kendry Rojas. I really think he can be a solid pitcher for this team. And he has a 1.65 ERA over 16 and a third innings with 18 strikeouts. He was sent down to AAA this week, but that was more to get a fresh arm back in the Twins bullpen and kind of reload. I think Kendry Rojas will be back with the Twins soon. The Twins got Roden in the deal as well, but they treat him like the scene, that dream scene in Toy Story 2, right? Where Andy looks at Woody and goes, I don't want to play with you anymore, and drops him. And that's been the Twins with Allen Roden. They got him, and they've proceeded to not really care what he does in terms of just getting him up here, getting him at big league at-bats. We already know he can handle AAA at-bats. We already know he can handle the AAA level. Is he going to be able to play at the big league level? And again, all of that to say, the Louie Varlands became one of the best relievers in the American League. There's just no bones about it. He has figured out how to finish hitters, and that was always the biggest deal. You could get 2 strikes on him if you were Varland. He could never figure out how to get a strikeout or how to get that guy to get himself out. It was always you get up 2 strikes, you end up walking him, or you get yourself into a bad ball count where you have to bring a pitch across the middle and a guy would crush it. And Varland figured out how to do that. And you can say that was the Blue Jays. You could say that was Varland figuring it out on his own. I'm not really sure what it more falls under, but that trade has been an L in terms of on-field production. But that being said, I don't want to rip it as badly as maybe some other people do, because I do like the return for Rojas, but it is hard to look at Varland being as good as he is and saying that that's a win for the Twins. But a small market team has to do this all the time. They have to aggressively sell at times. The Rays and Guardians do it all the time. You have to hit on those deals. Injuries have gotten in the way of some of them, but overall, this deadline, there was a brief moment at the beginning of the year where you thought this trade deadline, and by you, I mean me, but thought this trade deadline was going to be a boon for the Twins. And even though they didn't necessarily win the trades, they got enough value to kind of push this new core forward. And that's fallen apart very quickly over the month of May and into June as well. So we got a lot more to talk about on this Locked On Twins show, including Luke Keaschall moving himself on over to right field, potentially for the time being. We're talking about that and the Twins Rockies series preview and why the offense is due for a big weekend. That's all coming up after this. Locked On Twins today brought to you by Cash App. If Cash App could give you a discount on one place you're spending your money regularly, where would you have it and why? Because for me, if Cash App could give me a discount at one place, it'd probably have to be the local pizza place that's right across the street from where I work, because I spend way more money there than I'd like to admit. So getting a little money back every time would add up pretty quickly, because Cash App does more than you think when it comes to having your back and making sure your money stays your money. Crazy concept, I know. Cash App just released a new status program for the way people actually spend money called Cash App Green. Now, when you spend at least $500 a month with a Cash App card, you earn green status, which unlocks benefits like up to $200 of free overdraft coverage. If you overdraft unexpectedly, there are no hidden fees. You also unlock higher borrow limits and custom personalized cash back offers every Friday at places you love to shop. Turn everyday spending into status with Cash App Green. Download Cash App today or visit cash.app to learn more about this and other financial benefits. New Cash App customers can earn $10 if they use code CASHAPP10 in their profile at sign up and spend $5 to a friend within 14 days. Terms apply. That's Cash App. Locked on Twins today also brought to you by Game Time. Nothing like watching a Twins game at Target Field. Even better when you get to be there for a big weekend series, or maybe you saw Shohei versus Ryan. That was a pretty cool one. The excitement, the fans. The only problem, getting tickets can feel like a grind. You have long queues, surprise fees, and that price that jumps at checkout. Like, where did that come from? And that's where there's Game Time, because the Game Time app gives fans the advantage with constant innovation. It's how you unlock amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. It's simple to use because the Game Time guarantee means you get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. And here's the best part. Fees are included in the price you see. What you see is what you pay, period. Now, the Seats View feature is huge because I can see the panoramic view from my exact seat before I buy. I know exactly what it's going to look like. And I can follow the Minnesota Twins and get alerts when new deals drop. 2 taps and it's done. No stress, no hidden fees, just great seats in minutes. That's what makes it so easy to decide last minute to hit up a game. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Get your daily Minnesota Twins coverage completely ad-free by joining the Everydayer Club today. Start your 7-day free trial right now and get closer to the Twins without the interruptions. Click the link in the show notes, or you could always go to lockedontwins.supercast.com to claim your free trial. Luke Keaschall being moved to right field will be a huge defensive boon for the Minnesota Twins. Now, it's not a full move to right field. The Twins have said they are going to try and get some work for Luke Keaschall in right field. The Twins also did a little bit of work with Luke Keaschall over at first base for a very brief moment in time before, I think, pivoting to Royce Lewis being the kind of full-time first baseman in that regard. And so what that means is you need to find another spot for Luke Keaschall to go. Now, we mentioned this a couple days ago on the show. Go back and watch that show. Listen to that show wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube, all of that stuff. We discussed how Luke Keaschall has been one of the poorer, and if not the worst, defensive second baseman in baseball among qualified starters this season. So there is a precedent to move him off of that position, or at least move him off part-time. Find a different spot for him to go in certain situations so your defense can be better overall. Now, the only spot, and we talked about this last week, a couple days ago, I should say, the things we talked about were like, where do you move him? Is he kind of positionless? Is he like the Twins had with Luis Ariz, where you kind of had to bounce him around and you could never find a home for him? The only spot you can move him to outside of second base really is outside of backup center field for Byron Buxton, but you're not going to get consistent time there. The other one is corner outfield. Now, I kind of said left field because I thought with Keaschall's arm, you typically want your strong-armed fielder to be in left field to make that first to third kind of throw. But, you know, again, ballpark dynamics, maybe just outfield dynamics as well, who you want playing where. The Twins have said right field has been a spot they're going to look to try and get him some time in. And this is where I think it's intriguing for the Minnesota Twins. Because imagine if you have an Austin Martin in left field, you have a Byron Buxton in center field, and Luke Keaschall in right field. I think that opens up a really good defensive opportunity for the Minnesota Twins to do something. Like, I think that it brings up their defensive value. Now, their defensive deficiencies have really shown in the infield, at least post Matt Wallner demotion. The Twins' biggest defensive struggles have come on that left side of the infield and at second base. But, I mean, a way for that outfield to be fast, and it kind of reminds you of back in 2017, the nothing falls but raindrops outfield. Rosario could move a little bit. He also had a cannon arm in right, or in left field, excuse me. You had Max Kepler in right field, who had a good arm as well and could move. And then you had Byron Buxton, who can move as well. And you just had guys who could, they said nothing falls but raindrops. You had guys who could just catch ground, make up ground on those balls in the gap. You could flag them down. You could have your guy playing a little bit more in and then know that he can turn around and go get a ball behind him. Or you could have him playing back and know that your guy is going to end up catching those bloopers in front of him. And I think with the Twins, it gives you a really unique opportunity with Martin, Buxton, and Keaschall all aligned in that outfield together because they can cover some ground. And even though Keaschall's arm is a liability, I think the speed outweighs the arm concerns at this current juncture. Like, until you see it and you're like, nope, that's not going to work, you could at least give it a shot. And I think that's going to work. Now, arm strength from all three can be kind of an issue. Like Buxton at this point in his career isn't known for having the cannon arm. I know that Austin Martin has thrown a few runners out from the corner outfield spots. But again, his arm is probably the strongest, but it's not like top percentile elite arm strength. And Keaschall just has a none. Again, he had Tommy John surgery a few years ago, and his arm really just hasn't quite been the same from that point on. But I think because of how much ground they can cover, that is just going to make it a lot easier for them in that regard. Now, the only other thing is there is an issue of Keaschall being more of a platoon guy. I can't remember if this was in the YouTube comments or if this was on Twitter, but I know that a few of you guys have reached out and said, hey, I don't know how much I would want to move Keaschall there because, well, you don't want to stick him into a platoon role. He's been such a good hitter. He's been a guy who over the last month has had a batting average of over 300. You don't want to move him to where he's only facing lefties and you kind of pigeonhole his role. You've had to do that with Austin Martin, but you don't have to do that with Luke Keaschall. And I agree, by the way, I agree completely with that. But it's not like Keaschall is being moved full-time to right field. This would just be hey, we could also put him on right field if we want to find a way to get him into the lineup, right? That would be kind of the goal. And I think you could still play Keaschall in second base from time to time, but just he can't be your everyday second baseman from a defensive standpoint. And if you, let's say against lefties, move Luke Keaschall to right field, you have Austin Martin play in left field, Byron Buxton in center. Cody Clemens has kind of been a platooner anyways. He is only going to hit against righties, same with Trevor Larnach. So you have Larnach and Clemens both sit on those days. You have Keaschall play right field, Martin left, Buxton in center. Boom, you make that work out. But now what do you want to do on the days where you don't want to have, or days where you have a righty on the mound, right? You're going to have Larnach be in left field. You're going to have Clemens be in right. That's going to be a thing you have happen. Well, there's a couple different situations. One, you could move Cody Clemens to second base instead of right field, and then you can play him against right-handed hitters. You also could have Luke Keaschall be at second base, and you could just have Keaschall play in those situations and have Clemens play in right field, or in that situation. Or you could also have, Tristan Gray play in that situation as well. But again, I would think that you'd have Keaschall play second base against righties, against lefties. He kicks out to the corner outfield, and then you have, and then you kind of figure out who plays your second base. That probably is Tristan Gray in that spot. Although again, maybe it's Kreidler. And again, I think this is all, it's so funny. They've made these moves defensively for Kaelen Culpepper to play shortstop, but they refuse to call him up. And then now he's hurt. And I think he's on track to come back soon, but they need Kaelen Culpepper to play there right now because Kaelen Culpepper coming into the mix gets him at shortstop, which means Ryan Kreidler can play second base for you when Keaschall plays in the corner outfield. And then it works out really well. But you kind of have to figure out what you do in the meantime because you could have Tristan Gray, you could have Cody Clemens fill in. But again, how much does that really help you against lefties? And that, again, this is supposed to work with the puzzle piece of Kaelen Culpepper being in the outfield, but the Twins haven't called him up yet, which is still really confusing. But I will say, I think in the meantime, Tristan Gray getting a little bit more time at second is probably the move. This season, he is a +1 outs above average at second base, which again isn't like league defying. It's not going to win him a gold glove, but compared to how bad he's been at shortstop, it's an improvement for Tristan Gray. And compared to how bad the Twins have gotten defensive production at second base, yeah, Tristan Gray probably is the guy you want to put in that situation in the meantime. And again, Kreidler you could put there, but then you have to figure out shortstop, and then you kind of end up shuffling deck chairs a little bit. This is all fit for Kaelen Culpepper to come back in and make it work. But in the meantime, this is kind of a couple routes the Twins could go until Culpepper gets healthy and then gets his call up to the Minnesota Twins. We are going to wrap up the show by talking about the weekend series coming up against the Colorado Rockies and why the Minnesota Twins offense is primed for a big weekend. We're talking about that and more coming up after this. The biggest stage in world soccer is here, and every match feels like it has the potential for a memorable moment. One goal can completely change the energy of a game, shift momentum, and alter the outcome in an instant. That's what makes tournament soccer so exciting, from the opening whistle to the final kick. And now, FanDuel is giving fans another reason to stay locked into every match with every goal pays. Bet on a match and get bonus bets for every goal scored in that match. More goals means more bonus bets. All you have to do is turn in your token. USA plays Bosnia on Wednesday night. That's the next game for Team USA. And right now, as a recording of this podcast, Americans are minus 270 to score the first goal of the match. And if you want to look, FanDuel.com's got your place to go with all of the certain matches, the certain goals, the lines, all of that. They have it great. And that's what I love about these tournaments, by the way, is because you can just turn on a match with teams you don't normally follow, and suddenly one goal changes everything because the tension builds so quickly, you're invested before you even realize it. As a non-soccer watcher, typically, again, how much invested am I in this match or this match? Well, all of a sudden, boom, yes, I am. And FanDuel has a way to take it to another level because now you can benefit from each goal scored. From the opening whistle to the final kick, let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started now. Locked On Twins today, also brought to you by Hims. ED is way more common than most guys think. Millions of men deal with it at some point. Hims offers a simple, convenient way to take care of your health by connecting you with licensed healthcare providers online and giving you access to personalized treatment options from the comfort of your home. No awkward appointments, no pharmacy lines, just a straightforward process designed to make getting care easier. Taking care of yourself shouldn't feel complicated, and Hims makes the process private and easy to navigate. It's healthcare built around your schedule and your comfort. Because when you think about what makes a healthcare experience feel easier or less stressful, I mean, really, it's just the thing of the fact of you have to get to the doctor. You're always wondering. I mean, I am not a medical person. I don't know a lot of stuff when it comes to that. So when I have these people who are personalized to take care of me, explain it, make it easy, because it's already uncomfortable to talk about. The last thing you want is a complicated process. And having that ability to start online from home makes that first step feel much more manageable, and they got the people to help make it happen. So to get simple online access to personalized, affordable care for ED, hair loss, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/lockedonmlb. That's hims.com/lockedonmlb for your free online visit. hims.com/lockedonmlb. Prescription required. See website for details and important safety information. Sildenafil is the generic version of Viagra. Viagra is a registered trademark of Viatris Specialty LLC. Hims is not affiliated with or endorsed by Viatris. All right, the Minnesota Twins are primed for a big weekend against the Colorado Rockies in our Twins-Rockies series preview. To let me tell you right quick what I mean. So if you look at the numbers with the Minnesota Twins, of course, they continue to have one of the best offenses in all of baseball. Their lineup continues to hit. When you look at runs scored throughout this season, the Minnesota Twins currently remain 7th in all of baseball with 395 runs scored. The only teams higher than them, the Chicago Cubs, the New York Yankees, the Milwaukee Brewers, Pittsburgh Pirates, the LA Dodgers, and the number one on that list is the Washington Nationals. And for the Twins, if you look at their opponent this weekend, the Colorado Rockies, they have 369 runs scored on the year. So this is also a team that's above average in scoring in the league. They're 13th in all of baseball. And sometimes you can wash away the Rockies hitting numbers and go, that just happens at Coors. That's just something that happens because of their ballpark. When you look at the numbers, they probably, and you split it with their away games, they probably aren't that good of a hitting team on the road, or it's way too inflated when you look at the Rockies numbers. Well, that's not quite true either. So if you look at runs scored on the road, the Twins are 7th with road runs scored, but the Colorado Rockies are still 13th with 187 runs scored on the road. You compare that to runs scored at home, where the Rockies actually are a little bit worse at home compared to the league. They have 182 runs scored at Coors Field, just 16th in all of baseball. Meanwhile, the Twins 196 runs scored at Target Field are 10th in MLB. So again, when you look at it from that metric, you definitely see a team that isn't anything. They're not necessarily overinflated when they play at home. So when they play on the road, you got to take them seriously if you're the Twins lineup. Now the Twins as a lineup overall, or the Rockies, I should say, as a lineup overall on the road, they've about a 98 weighted runs created plus, which is 14th in baseball. So this team they're about middle of the pack offensively in a lot of different categories. So it's something that Twins pitching is going to need to be on top of. They're not something to take lightly, but I do think this is a great series overall for the Minnesota Twins offense to really make their mark, to really have a good series. Because when you look at the Rockies pitching is where all of a sudden you start to see things get a little south really quickly. The Colorado Rockies bullpen this year, if you look at ERA ranks, is right in the ballpark with the Minnesota Twins. The Twins bullpen ERA is 5.30, which is the worst in baseball. And as we've talked about all year long, this Twins bullpen, albeit with brief moments of competency, has been really bad overall. The only bullpens that are worse are the Washington Nationals, or the only teams that have an ERA above 5, because the Twins are the worst in baseball. The Athletics are 27th with 5.01. The Rockies 5.02 ERA is 28th, and the Nationals have a 5.05 ERA from their bullpen that's 29th. So the Rockies have just as bad of a bullpen as the Twins. So there is an opportunity there late in games to be able to take advantage against these Rockies pitchers. The other thing to keep in mind when you look at starting pitching ERA for these teams, the Twins starting pitching ERA is 22nd in baseball with 4.49. The Rockies starters are the worst in baseball. Their rotation is bar none the worst when you look at their numbers as a team. The Colorado Rockies have a 5.92 ERA from their starters this season. That's been bad. And let's even just take a look on the road. Because again, if we try and take the Coors effect out of this, when you want to look at these teams and their home games, their road games, and all that kind of stuff, when you take that into account, they still are not a great team. They still have been towards the bottom of the barrel in all of baseball. So there is an opportunity to take advantage of this team's pitching staff, and for the Twins offense, it's one of the league's best, to light it up. And I think the Twins, not that they need to sweep, because I never predict sweeps. Sweeps are just so hard, no matter how good, no matter how bad a team is. But that being said, the Twins, after getting swept by the Dodgers, need to win this series and salvage the weekend and at least go 2-4 on the weekend as compared to maybe like 1-5 or something like that. Because the Twins do this. They have one good week, then they followed up by 2 to 3 bad weeks, then 1 to 2 good weeks, and then 2 to 3 bad weeks. And then over the course of the year, you find yourself getting lower and lower and lower on the totem pole, even though, again, if you watch it in a vacuum, you do see some good baseball from time to time. And I think this is a weekend where the Twins can take advantage. They don't need to sweep. They need to win the series. Winning the sweep would be icing on the cake, and then all of a sudden you throw yourself right back into the thick of things because this AL wildcard race is so bad. When you look at the AL wildcard standings for the American League, the Twins are 1.5 games back of a wildcard spot. They're 7 games below 500. They have a negative run differential. They've lost 3 in a row, and yet they are still a game and a half back of that final wildcard spot being held by jointly the Athletics, the Blue Jays, and the Rangers. By the way, how bad is the NL West? The Twins those are the two teams that are behind them. The NL West, Houston Astros are 40-43, and they have that final wild card spot. That's who's a game and a half behind them. But the NL West is so bad that it's 41-41 for the Mariners, and that's first place in the division. The White Sox are 41-38. They lead the AL Central. That's where we're at here. That's where we're at here with some of these teams. So it's not been great for the American League as a whole. Now, the Twins can take advantage by limping themselves into a spot, but they're going to need to get a series win against the Colorado Rockies to do that. And not that you need a sweep, but you certainly want to win 2 out of 3. And the Rockies are bad. I mean, they're a team coming in this weekend. They have the worst record in baseball. They are 32-49. It's kind of like last year when the Twins played the Rockies in Colorado post All-Star break. And it's like, you need to win this series. And the Twins proceeded, I believe, to lose 2 out of 3 or get swept. And it basically solidified themselves as like, yep, you're going to sell at the deadline, and kind of really got that big sell-off into overdrive. So this will be the same thing. If you can sweep the Rockies, if you can win 2 out of 3, that's my baseline. Win 2 out of 3, look good, and roll, you're in a good spot. If you get swept or lose 2 out of 3 even, then it's like, you know what? Pack her up. We don't need to worry about any trade deadline conversations other than how big this year's sell-off would be. So, all right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked on Twins. On Monday, we have our stock up, stock down report. We take our minor league farm update and more. So make sure you subscribe to Locked on Twins wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube to get all the latest episodes. You can find me on X at BombCJ30, and if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Twins ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head on over to LockedOnTwins.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio for your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB. See ya.